You go down the inner cities, you go down to any inner city, what do you see? You see fast food, you see a bodega, usually a strip club or a bar.
Liquor stores.
And it's cheap, easy food.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Well, wow, this is going off the rails here.
But
It is.
just getting back to what you were saying, it's, the old saying, walk a mile in my shoes. I always say, see life through my eyes. Mm-hmm. So if someone saw life through through someone else's eyes, they may actually grasp the reality of what's going on.
But that's judging a book by its cover. So if you were to see, I've been all three of those things. Mm-hmm. I've been poor. Mm-hmm. I've been homeless. Mm-hmm. I believe it or not, I've been looked down on. Mm-hmm. All three of them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time,
that was just today.
Yeah, that's the danger of it. You look at a certain type of people, a certain race of people, a certain gender of people, somebody who doesn't look exactly like you, and you judge them based on their appearance. You would never think that I was ever homeless, but I was. All right, you would never think that I was ever poor. I grew up very poor. I know what the inequity is of life. Now, you grew up in that South Jersey area, in that community. When did you first start to, you know what I did forget? I forgot our social media question. All right?
We got this far without even...
Yeah. But I do want to say that, I have had the awesome experience of working with, supporting, meeting so many different types of people. So I don't judge books by their cover. I think that's even more of why we're able to have impact in this work, is because we realize that struggle looks different, right?
Suffering.
Suffering.
Come on, Doc. Promote the podcast. Would you? Jeez.
I'm sorry, but there's a lot of different faces and experiences to what suffering is, right? But everybody doesn't hold that particular frame, right? And so we know, hey, someone that is experiencing food insecurity or someone who is experiencing homelessness, there's a diversity to how they look, right? How they experience that, and also all the different types of resources they might need, right? We know statistically that there's some groups that experience food insecurity, homelessness at higher rates, higher prevalence than others. And poverty at higher rates than others. But at the end of the day, we know inside of all of that is a diversity of folks, and that's how we have to lean and work in. And so me personally, I don't know where people have come from, but
I do know where we met for the first time, because they're one of our newest sponsors, and that's 3 Acres Properties in Jersey City.
That's good.
Listen, they've been really good to us, and actually, somebody from that location gave us our social media question, and our social media question is: how did your early career choices lead you to where you are now? Because it kind of works into the conversation now. You have this view of food inequity, food and health inequity. Mm-hmm. This doesn't just happen overnight. No. So how did your past experiences lead you to where you are now?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's a big question.
It's broad.
Well, that's blame 3 Acres. Don't blame me.
That's a big question. So where do I start? I'll say first.
Well, you were a professor at
Temple. I was
Temple?
a professor, but right before we get to the professor, right? This is what I'll say. Up until getting my bachelor's degree in psychology, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist, right? I was also an athlete. I've been an athlete my entire life. I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, did track and field.
Go Devils.
Well, it's the Knights on the Hackensack campus.
No, it's Madison Devils.
I won't hold that against you. But
Bergen County.
They didn't have a football team in Teaneck Hackensack campus.
You didn't have one either.
Yeah, we did.
Yes,
ECACs.
Yeah.
We had a really good one.
Yeah.
Well, didn't think you were that good anyway, but
my up and through getting my bachelor's degree, I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. I was so absorbed and focused on the psychology of sociopaths, the psychology of serial killers, I should say, that I felt like at the time I wanted to devote my career to understanding serial killers, but particularly also understanding individuals who perpetrated sexual violence. And so go through my
Hey, Doc,
bachelor's.
here's your next case study.
Yeah, I
No,
was
no.
just gonna.
Here's your next.
No.
I beat you to the punch. You
You
know
did
it.
that time. You did. It's a first for everything.
No, but then up and through my master's degree is in psychology with a focus on forensics. I was taking a profiling serial rapist class. I still find understanding
That's a joyful class.
yeah,
no
I still
kidding.
find understanding the mind of a serial rapist and rapists in general fascinating and necessary. It was taught by a retired New York City detective, and he would show us actual
Crime scene photos.
crime scene photos, and a lot of the focus was on victimology. Why this victim, right? One day I'm in class, we're looking at crime scene photos, and I said to myself, I could do this for about 5 to 7 years. I do this about 5 to 7 years and still be a happy, okay person, adjusted person.
Sounds like it might take a piece of your soul, though, doing
But
that.
that
That's
was
exactly it.
why I said, you know what? But once I'd get to around the 10-year mark, I would be a different person. And so at the same time, I was a college athlete, did pole vault and discus, and I had suffered from competitive sport anxiety. As a discus thrower, I was super confident, but as a pole vaulter, I would get so nervous. I would have catastrophizing thoughts, all these different things. And so at the same time, I went to my advisor and I said, I'm experiencing this as an athlete. And he said, oh, there's people called sports psychologists that work with athletes who experience a range of different issues or concerns related to sport and performance. And so God bless my thesis committee at FDU. They said, look, you still got to graduate with your degree in the specialization in forensics, but we'll let you do a master's thesis on something related to sports psychology. And so I did my master's thesis on the motivation and confidence within among student athletes, and how does anxiety impact an athlete's motivation. So I graduate, and then I say, you know what, I think I'm going to go get this degree in kinesiology and sports psychology. Didn't really know anything about it because, again, my whole life had been forensics. Really didn't know anything about sports psych.
And I couldn't spell kinesiology.
Right now, De Palma's going to scratch his head going,
Another word for De Palma is
And-
stew on.
catastrophizing and kinesiology.
But I didn't know anything about it, and I Googled some schools. Temple University popped up. And to make a long story short, I met the most wonderful man in the world who's still my mentor today, Dr. Michael Sachs.
I thought I was the most amazing person she ever met.
He took a chance on me because, many students and kids that come into sports psychology know sports psych. And I knew clinical psychology. I knew forensics. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to take a bet on you. At the same time, I was like, look, I want to know more about this thing called sport and exercise psychology. But, plus sign, I also began to become deeply fascinated in the health issues, the preventative health and chronic health issues that I observed in my own family. Many of the women in my family experienced cancer, diabetes, and lupus, sickle cell anemia. And so I just wondered, is there a relationship between what I experienced in my family, even with myself, and physical activity and exercise? And so during my time at Temple, I looked into a lot of different motivation theories, a lot of sociology of physical activity, as well as psychology of physical activity, to further kind of peel back why might there be a higher prevalence of these preventable chronic illnesses amongst Black women? And how might understanding the sociology and psychology of physical activity in some way be helpful in changing those trends? And so my research and my work as a professor focused a lot on that, the social determinants of physical activity, particularly in Black and brown women. At the same time, I was at a bunch of different schools, and at Long Island University, I had started a center that really focused on that research, but also provided sport and exercise psychology services to the community. So that's the gist of what got me into health and wellness.
But it makes perfect sense because I've been a runner for quite some time now.
You wouldn't notice.
And you're also an extreme meditator.
I am.
Yeah,
I am.
that's
I'm
right.
an extreme meditator. It's either hot or cold, depending on the season. Now it's cold. Mike stands out back, watches me in my underwear.
I got pictures.
Yeah. But so you take a marathon runner. The typical marathon diet is, especially pre-race, has always been the pasta party.
Pasta the night before.
The pasta party is a big night before the New York City Marathon. I went to it in 2006. Carbohydrates, especially starchy carbohydrates for a runner, is probably the worst thing you could possibly do. Just to give you an example, every marathon I've ever run, excuse my language here, but somebody always messes their pants.
At the 18-mile mark.
No, right off the gate. Right off the gate, there's a bathroom. So New York City Marathon starts at the Verrazano Bridge. The bathroom line is, it's so many porta johns you wouldn't believe it. Somebody inevitably will mess their pants. Now, as ultra elite marathoners get older, the old ones, they would be plagued by chronic gut issues, chronic arthritis, which is all brought on by, say, gluten, because our bodies aren't supposed to process it. What they're finding now is a diet that's high in good fats will give you better fuel than a carbohydrate-rich diet. For marathon runners, now, once they switch their diet, they're able to run faster, further, and longer. A marathon runner, especially an elite marathoner runner's career, would end about 31, 32, 33 maybe. Now they're going into their 40s. All because of that health and wellness change in sports. I guess it's as much psychology as is sports health and wellness. So it makes perfect sense to me. Have you experienced anything like that as far as dietary issues, changes that you saw there was a problem? As far as an athlete, the ones that you've coached.
Well, I haven't coached anyone.
Not coached, but talked to.
Worked with.
Worked with, lectured.
During my time at LIU, when we had Peak Center and we were providing sports psychology services to athletes, which is actually just one reason why I just love what I do. But it was not uncommon for an athlete to come in for support around a particular performance-related issue. Let's say the coach said there's an issue with confidence or competitive sport anxiety. And then when we begin to peel back some of the layers of that athlete's daily experience, we find out, well, they don't have enough money to eat, right? They're experiencing food insecurity, or they're sleepless at night, or they're experiencing challenges at home or something like that, which all impact their ability to perform at their most optimal, right? Particularly, not just food insecurity, but also having access to the right type of diet for their body and for the physical needs that they have for their sport.
So food education.
Food education and food access, right?
Well, food access is fast food.
Food access is access to food.
Yeah, well, I'm saying the easiest access to food is generally fast food.
Yeah, and
so you're eating McDonald's burgers and going out and running, and which counterintuitive.
It's not helpful, and that all still comes with an expense at the same time, right? And so something that I observed with particularly the student athletes, the college level athletes, was that access to healthy food options and to food in general, regular, consistent food, right, was a problem. Which we know that there's populations of college kids, I don't know the exact statistic, that experience food insecurity every day, right? And so that just because you're a student athlete doesn't mean you're not immune to that as well. But then also, education around, when you do have access to the food options that you need, what are the best foods for you to eat, not just for your sport, but for that time, that phase, or that season that you're in, as well as outside of season. Yeah.
Well,
I have to say that is the longest answer to a social media question we've ever had.
Probably. Probably. You know what? I'm going to give Dr. Leeja a break. I'm going to give her a break. I'm going to pass that portion of the social media question off to you.
Yeah, what was it again? Could you read?
Were we still in the social media question?
Well, we went roundabout. We went around.
Did I answer the social
Yes,
media
you did.
question?
Yes, you did.
About 52 times.
Your early career choices leading to where you are now.
You know, I mean, my first career after I left college was I got into the pipe fitters union, and it showed me what hard work is all about.
I knew you worked with pipe.
Yeah, exactly. I laid pipe for a long time.
I knew it.
No, it taught me what hard work was all about. You know, and you know, you didn't have vacation days. You know, you didn't have holidays. You either worked or you didn't work. You know, you were paid by the hour. If there was a holiday, you didn't get paid that day. If you didn't, you know, if you didn't want to go to work one day, you didn't get paid that day. So it taught me how to apply myself, work hard in all elements, hot, cold, you know, everything. And I think that's where I really got my work ethic from. I mean, I've been retired for over 6 years now, and I'm working every day. I just can't sit still and stop working.
My early on jobs made me enjoy hard work. Made me enjoy it. And I miss it. I miss being able to.
You didn't work hard at Coldwell Toyota. Who are you kidding?
What about putting up swimming pools and doing construction since I was 13? I enjoyed that type of work because it fulfills you. You go home tired, sweaty, exhausted. You feel accomplished at the end of the day.
That's what I said. That working all elements. That's what working in the construction union did for me.
As much as I loved being a cop, on those nights when nothing happened, I went home more tired and almost
less fulfilled,
almost depressed that I wasn't able to do anything. Like you're sort of governed, you're held back, and I don't like that feeling. So what do? You know, I take the opportunity when I have downtime to go work harder. I'll fill up time to. I'm a workaholic, unfortunately, but I will always find that something to fill that gap because I know that fulfillment of a hard day's work. And I think it's something that we as a society have gotten very, very far away from. But getting back to the education thing that you talked about earlier, I see this in my community because I'm a football coach. And I see this with little kids. So you have a little kid and we got weight limits and their parents are uneducated or maybe they're not economically able to get the better foods or they just don't know. I found that in education is probably the worst out of anything. So you get a kid who's on the border with weight limit and you get him on the scale a week later and he's gained weight. I was like, what happened? He says, well, I said, what'd you have for dinner? He said, I had chicken. I'm like, well, that's good. And then I'm like, wait, how's the chicken cooked? Well, it was Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
I said, okay, fried chicken is not the best health choice that you can make. Okay, and then you have to go talk to the parents. And I say, okay, let's figure this out because I want the kid to play. And then you from the limited knowledge that I have about food, I tried to say, well, stick to these, stick here, do this, do this, do this. Stay away from pasta, stay away from bread, meats, or if you're vegan because. There's a couple of them that were vegan. Let's stay away from anything fried with vegetable oil. Stay away from that stuff. Anything to give them a leg up. But that's the inequity of education as far as food goes. And that goes across the board. I see this a lot in the inner cities. You go down the inner cities, you go down to any inner city, what do you see? You see fast food, you see a bodega, usually a strip club or a bar.
Liquor stores.
And it's cheap, easy food.
And now pharmacies.
And
we'll pump, poor food options into communities, right? Knowing that a healthy diet is a huge preventative strategy and tactic to eliminating or reducing the prevalence of things like obesity, stroke, heart disease. But instead of doing that, we pump that food into various different communities, and then say when you get to the point where you're experiencing this illness, we'll give you some form of pharmaceutical to manage it.
If you get this, if you get this, just go to the local drugstore.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's how money is made.
I was just gonna say it's all about this.
It's all about money. And instead of investing in prevention, right? Prevention, now people are going to lose money, but we'll have healthier communities. We'll have healthier people. We'll have individuals that not only have access to what they need, but also know how to prepare that food.
Because
and
this world,
and have
this
what's
country's
needed.
run all about the almighty buck, right? And they're looking at angles to make more money.
You do have
So-
to follow the money.
So you pump them all with the wrong kinds of food and everything else. So they do come down with all these different, ailments and illnesses, and then you push them off to the local drugstore, and everybody makes money. But they're not looking out for me and you. Is really what it comes down to.
Aside from the obvious health risks of poor food choices, there are some secondary. I don't know the proper term for it, but there are some secondary effects to it.